One of the things about the bridge that I assume it's still true, but it was remarkable to me was that everybody who worked there had been a client there. Is that still the case?
Outside of some staff members, certainly all of the clinicians, most of the staff members. And that is, I can't imagine being a clinician there or working there without having done that. And that honestly has been the reason why some folks won't work at the bridge, right? So we don't operate from therapy hill, right? So I'm in my own journey too. I've got my challenges as well, yes. And so to know I'm going to have to do some work, right? And then to wrap your brain around, these are the people I'm going to work with, right? But to be able to look at a client like yourself and say, I'm literally not going to ask you to do anything that I haven't done. And to be able to say that from the heart.
Yeah, that's really an amazing feature, and I sort of imagine that through the lens of anyone who takes care of another person, right? Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, people I think are right to sort of be frustrated when they have a doctor who's asking them to take care of themselves when the doctor clearly doesn't take care of themselves, right? Like how is it that you can tell me that I need to eat better and exercise when looking at you, it's clear you're not doing those things.
Right.
Right. It doesn't mean that the advice is incorrect or that you shouldn't listen to it.
Right.
It's just you're asking me to do something you won't do.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Whereas, at the bridge, we can talk about some of the other things that are very difficult to do there, such as in the second week when you're kind of beating the shit out of things. That those are not easy things to do. Mm-hmm. But to know that when Jeff and Julie are asking you to do it, they did it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think to the way the journey starts, is we disclose. And some professionals will be like, be careful with self-disclosure, and it's not about me, it's about them. But like, hey, we're going to ask you all pretty quickly to start showing us a piece of your soul, so to speak, right? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about mine. And that's that hopefully we can start building that rapport early. Like, I think we can trust these folks, right? I think that we can, I think that they can lead us. Maybe not everybody, but like to introduce that. Because like you say, in week 2, we ask folks to go places with us, right? And, it's, that experiential therapy, and you mentioned one way of doing experiential therapy, the somatic part of what we do. But, things have come a long way. And within the spirit of that process, and when you talked about that learning a language, I love that analogy, because you are immersed in that. But, it's that being able to experience the emotion, right? The hijacking, if you will, of the emotional brain. I liken it to, we're going to walk you down to the edge of the river, okay? And we're going to put your foot into the water. Now, the water being here, your past, your pain, right? Because we want you to feel a little bit of the temperature, right? But we're going to stand here right beside of you, and our job is to keep you in 2024, 25, whatever year, right? Like, we'll keep you here. We're going to go there, but we're going to stay here. Dual awareness, right? That's the integrative part, right? Like, some people need to yell because they haven't had a voice. Some people need to learn that they yelled and they were able to not get lost in it, right? And everybody's journey being different and befriending. But that, it's almost like some people say, well, I can't put my finger on what it was, but something was different, right? And it's like, what happened? What is it that you did? I said, well, sometimes you might say we were activating your limbic system so that you could do something different while activated, right? Like learning how to get space from the emotional brain. So many clients, especially clients with trauma, years of frustration, learning coping skills in safe offices with therapists. And they're done beautifully and repetitively within that environment. But it's really hard to recreate that back at home, right? Or at work
Yeah.
when triggered, right? My coping skills live in a part of the brain that gets hijacked when the emotional brain takes over, okay? And this doesn't always have to be about trauma. Can you believe I'm saying that? But the example I give, because I'm a professional, right? My mother's 87 years old with dementia. She's living in a nursing home, okay? Now, so all the things that go along with that, the irrationality that's involved with that. And so Jeff goes to these visits and he starts noticing that all these visits are starting with my mother talking about how somebody is stealing her blue ink pens and what I call her old lady blue jeans, right? And so I'm sitting there saying, are you kidding me? Like, who would want your blue ink pens, right? Think about this rationally, Mom. Who wants these old blue jeans? And how many of my visits, that's how that visit started. And it just went downhill from there. And to literally be sitting in the truck outside before a visit, praying, give me what needs to happen here. And so many times as clinicians, we ask clinicians, you take your hat off, take your therapist hat off, right? But sometimes you need to put it on because Jeff, the clinician, is not sitting there in front of his mother. There's a son sitting there in front of his mother who is facing the reality that it's not his mother anymore. And that's very sad, right? And so the anger is a much more comfortable place to be, or frustration. So I'm going to argue with Mom about how irrational this thought is, right? But it's breaking because I don't want my mom to think that people are stealing her blue ink pens. I want her to change. I want this to be corrected, right? But I'm forgetting like one of the golden rules, of change when it comes to therapy and rolling with resistance, okay? The more that I fight for change, the more this other person is going to fight for the status quo. It happens 99% of the time, okay? But when you sell crazy back to somebody tenfold, they start to suggest rationality. Here's what I mean by that. One day in that truck, I realized I have got to do something different, right? So I'm going to go in there. And when I went in there with my executive functioning. I went in there from the prefrontal cortex, right? And so when Mom started talking about her blue jeans and her blue ink pens, my response was, you know what? You're right, and I think I know exactly the lady that's doing it. I'm going to go give her a piece of my mind. And what did my mom say? Jeff, sit down. Be sensible, right? I didn't have access to something that I do all the time with clients, right? Selling crazy back to them, right? You go home, you'll get your cigarettes back. If you're talking about the bridge, you'll get your cigarettes back, you'll get your phone back, you'll go back home, you'll go back to your perfect girlfriend, and life will be okay. And no, I didn't say life's okay. All right, well then we got something to talk about, right? You got to stay here. You're going to die if you don't change. They just fight. They just fight for the status quo, right? So, but that's that Jeff that I was talking about. I didn't have access to those skills because I wasn't being driven by. Now there's all the baggage. There's the being the son. There's the trauma related to Mom. There's all of that played into that. But to be able to get access to what some folks call the bill paying brain.